This isn't just another podcast. We're crushing the taboos and we're rewriting the rules. It's the space where we normalize women becoming wealthy. If you're done playing small and ready to become the CEO of your life and the architect of your future, then my girl, you're in the right room. Welcome to your wealthy era. Welcome to the Wellthy CEO Podcast.
Today's conversation is one every entrepreneur needs to hear because when it comes to money, clarity is power. My guest, Staci Millard, is the founder of Thrive Accounting and the host of the Small Business School podcast. She helps entrepreneurs simplify their numbers, make smarter decisions, and build businesses that truly work for them, not the other way around. Whether you're just getting started or scaling beyond six figures, this episode will help you see your business through the lens of strategy, not stress. Let's dive in. Staci, I am so grateful and excited to have you here today on the Wellthy CEO Podcast. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
And this is so fun because a couple of weeks ago, I was on your podcast and that episode's already come out and it was amazing. So I'm excited to bring you onto my podcast now and get your wisdom to be sharing with the audience today.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah. So, okay, before we dive into the goods around tax, which will make most people want to fall asleep when you start talking about numbers and tax and structure. But I'm really excited about it. So we're going to get into that. But before there was Thrive Accounting, before your podcast and becoming a voice for business owners, what was the moment for you that made you realize entrepreneurs need more than just tax help? And what made you build Thrive into something that's about empowerment and not just accounting?
Interesting. Yeah. So a little bit of history for me. I grew and sold an accounting firm. And so it's a little bit of a convoluted story because I realized it in business number one. And then I said I was never coming back to accounting and I took a break and came back and very intentionally I'm growing this firm. And it's like a legacy business for us. I want to change the industry with it. So it really was during the first accounting practice that I grew. And if your listeners work with accountants, they know it's sometimes it's boring and nobody listens and they're gatekeeping all this information. You don't feel like you know anything. Doesn't really feel like they're helping you. You only see them once a year. You're like, how do they know anything about me? It was just a really big values disconnect for me. It actually was one of the reasons that I ended up selling the firm because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything valuable for anybody. Don't get me wrong. Tax filing is wonderful. Keeps you out of jail. Right? We're all worried about taxes, but other than that, I'm like, that's not really what I want to hang my hat up on. And a lot of accountants, we are somewhat trained in the financial aspect of growing a business, but we're not intentionally made into that person who's an internal accountant. It's a specialized kind of area of accounting. And I'm like, those are the people I find making a difference for small business owners that are okay, we've got the goods. This is what you need to know to grow your business. And how do you have money left over? And so it was in that time frame. And I was like, this is so far off of what I know a CPA accounting practice to be that it just felt like a values misalignment that I was like, I think somebody else wants this firm. They'll love this. It's not for me.
And how many years were you a part of that firm?
Yeah, I had it for, I think 7 to 8 years. So
wow. Okay.
Grew it, had great success in it. But growing it was actually one of the things that led me here because I didn't look at my numbers. And people were like, what do you mean you're an accountant? You didn't look at your numbers. I was like, no, I literally went in with just a heart-led leadership. I was like, I am so tired of working for a partner who doesn't care about the clients. It's just a price tag. They don't care about the people working for them. I want to do it differently. I'm going to show them up that I can do this and pay people well and, not have to charge an arm and a leg for my services and do it well. And very quickly did that. But through it, there were so many pain points of not looking at my numbers. I was just going to do the work. And then it was like, yeah, that doesn't work that way. We have people to pay. We need to know what we're promising so that we're always delivering it, not falling flat, right? Just like so many things involved in real business that they don't teach you in business school.
No kidding. Well, this is why we're having this conversation. And it's actually a great segue, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the numbers, because numbers tell a story. And so often entrepreneurs, and not to like shit on women, but too often women more so than men who are in business, who are entrepreneurs, have their own companies. They don't know their numbers, but they don't even know how to read them. And so what are like 3 key financial numbers that you would advise to like an everyday entrepreneur that they should be looking at monthly that could actually help them grow their business, and maybe how they can use those numbers to make better decisions and not just feel guilty or overwhelmed?
What we're really looking at is profit pillars. And there's a few numbers that you need to understand in your business. So revenue is one of them. And that's pretty easy because we always know, like for most of us, we know how much is coming in, right?
Right.
But the other pieces to this puzzle are like, what is the cost of delivering our product or service? And so for a realtor, it's like, what is your listing cost? What are all the different things that you do associated with selling that listing? And then you're also looking at what's your overhead. And those 3 numbers tell us a lot of things. It tells me how many things I need to sell. It tells me if I need to cut back on expenses. It tells me, what I can invest in next. So knowing each one of those numbers is really important, as well as the profit. But I think what's more important than that is knowing what are the actions that lead to the results. So accounting is like we're always doing something historical. So we're showing you after the fact, here's the results you got. And so I would argue like you need that information, right? So you do an Instagram post, you want to know the reach. Did it perform well or not? But when it doesn't, you have to go back to the action. What do I need to do differently? And it's the same thing in accounting as like, the social concept that we're all so used to now. And so it's like, okay, what are my actions that led to those results, right? Did I overspend in a certain area? Did my delivery of this product or service, like, did I go over budget on it? And you're starting to dive more into the actions that led to the results.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense? Yeah. And I think that's what most people miss, is that it's like, one, they don't understand the numbers. They tell a story, but then they don't understand also, what does this mean? Like everybody thinks like, okay, getting the numbers is like the puzzle piece, but then they don't know after that, like, what does this mean in terms of what do I need to do with this now? So it's like the numbers are great, but understanding like how for your particular business, they lead to success. So one model that I use often with our clients is called a financial canvas. And it kind of talks about how money flows through your business. I think the interesting part is that a lot of people feel like finding out the numbers is going to be the solution. And it somewhat is, because if we're in the dark, that's not acceptable. Like we're not taking any steps forward to fixing things. But also it is about the actions that we take that get to the results, right? And so the thing about the numbers is, in my opinion, we should be getting information. Sorry, like you didn't ask for this, but I'm going to tell you my opinion of people like investing in help, okay? Yeah. My opinion is that we should get help in a way that it leads to some return on investment. And because I think like knowing the numbers is important, but it's only a part of the step, then we have to take the actions. I think that when you're investing in like a financial team, so a bookkeeper, an accountant, a CFO, that those numbers can't break the bank. Like I've been talking to some people recently and they're like, well, I paid $2,000 for this or $5,000. And when you're a growing business owner, to get a CFO to tell you, here's what I think you should do in a month, like I'm investing my money in the stock market. Like I know what I want to make back, right? So I'm like, how did this person leave me this many thousands of dollars ahead? So I get pretty fired up about that part of the conversation. And so we bring it back to like, how do we give you information about the numbers? And then you can go and take those and make changes in your business. So an example of like when numbers become like really detrimental is like a business owner isn't paying themselves, and they have no concept of like, how much should I pay myself, or like, what is this worth? Like, am I overpaying, underpaying? And so getting that clarity, literally night and day. Business owners, their changes that they make, they're like, they instantly start acting differently. Things become different priorities. They maybe hire help because they're realizing that like, oh, I can afford it. Or maybe they're like, wow, I really need to reprioritize my spending. And they do, right? But it's because of the information, but then it's the actions. Like they actually have to take different action steps. So I think that numbers are important, and don't forget like the things that you have to do after you know them. And when you're investing, if I've told you like, hey, numbers are important, like now, or they've got that from your episodes, then like now go do something about it.
So what's coming up for me as you're sharing this, because it's crucial and highly valuable. And when you're wanting to go and take that action, it's like, okay, who should be that first right person to outsource to get that help, to analyze and also advise on your numbers? Because like there's some people, and maybe I'm going to turn it over to you, you know, but like for example, I was speaking with a woman a few weeks ago, and her financial advisor does her filings for her taxes. Because I said, I'm like, oh, well, who's your accountant? Like, who are you, what firm or independent, like, who are you using? She said, well, I don't have an accountant. My financial advisor does that. I'm like, why would she do that? And it's kind of a conflict of interest in some ways. I'm like, and she's very limited to an extent on like what she needs to know around taxes and structure, and like how you could be, when you start talking about, you know, where you could be cutting costs or repurposing, rediverting funds. Like, is that what that person is advising you on? And of course they're like, I'm not really sure. So I share that as an example because it's horrible. And I can hear other people saying like, well, who should be that first person? Because I think naturally people think like a CFO, and a CFO is obviously much more expensive than bringing in somebody. Maybe it is the accountant, you know? So I turn it over to you. Like, what would be your advice from that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like before I even tell you who, I think you have to understand that like there's a right fit for everybody, right? Like we pick a doctor, there's, you know, lots of doctors out there, but there's going to be a right fit for us. We pick a marketing company, there's a right fit for us. Like, so when you're doing your research, you and deciding on somebody, you also need to know the person that you're choosing and whether they are a good fit for you and your business, if they know your industry and understand you, right? So that's like number one. From there, we have three different things. Like we have a bookkeeper, and traditionally, a bookkeeper is somebody who does data entry. They've not taken any additional schooling other than putting some data into an accounting program. But that may not mean that they understand much of it, right? So they may not understand the difference between what's a current asset and a long-term asset. So they work with what they have. Then we've got an accountant. And to me, the limitations on like traditional accountants is that they file your taxes once a year. They don't get to know you very much. A lot of accountants who are CPAs still don't like doing bookkeeping. So like they're waiting to talk to you until the end of the year. Like it's a little bit of a mess. And so you can start with asking your accountant. If it's your year end and you're going in to meet with them, I would ask them their advice. And consistently, I'm hearing that people have a complaint that they're like, well, I'm in the online space. They don't understand me. Like I'm a real estate agent. They're not writing off all these expenses. And that's where that mismatch comes from, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like you have to understand that person that you're hiring and whether they're a good fit, or the firm that you're hiring. And if they're a good fit, who do they traditionally deal with? And then you're right that historically CFOs are expensive, but fractional services are making CFO advice like more and more and more accessible. So
can you break that down? What's a fractional service for those that might not know?
Yeah, so it just means that instead of having somebody on your team full time giving you that knowledge and that insight, that you're only paying for a little bit of their time. So now it becomes easier to afford. And I think that there's going to be a massive shift in this industry, because I think that things like ChatGPT and just like a shift in general with us, like it's a little bit of a downturn. When we're spending, like we want more information. I think we're going to demand more out of our accountants to be giving us some of those CFO insights. So for example, like where I was mentioning earlier that like CFOs in the past were like $2,000, $5,000 a month, and that might not feel doable for a lot of businesses. Like we're providing those same insights for, I'm talking like a couple $100 a month, because we can automate things and systematize them and like break them down into bite-sized chunks based on where your business is at to help you get to the next level. So like you can get a little bit of advice so that you go a few steps forward, and then, okay, now I need more, right? And then like you pay for it as you go. And I just think like there's shifts across lots of industries like that, where it's like we're kind of changing because we're like, we need better. Like we demand better. Like this isn't acceptable to pay this kind of money and not get a result. We have statistics about failure over and over again. So I think there's shifts, right?
I love that. And you are very right. Like I've gone through enough accountants over the last 15 years, like myself, which is not ideal. Like it's really nice to have one accountant that you can grow with who really has a handle and knows everything. Like that's the goal. You want, for me anyways, that's how I prefer it. You want them to be able to see your whole portfolio, not just even your business. Like for me, it's also on the personal side, because there's strategies and tax advantages that could be missed if they don't know your personal, not just your business side, right? So, but it does take a minute. And I will share, I had this one firm I was working with for years, probably like 5 or 6 years at that point. And all of a sudden I started getting all these billables, like as if they were my lawyer. And I'm like, I literally had to instruct them to be like, do not review my file and do not send me an email unless I have reached out to you to ask you to do so. Because I don't want to get a bill for $700. Like, what is this? Because you reviewed my file. Like, so you do need to, I share that because you do need to be aware and find like that right fit, not just for your circumstance, but also in the operations of how they work, how they operate, to make sure that it's an aligned fit. And I remember when I left them, and it was sad because my whole family was there at one point, like my mom, my dad, my brother. And I just said to them, I'm like, I'm not a Fortune 500 company. Like I do not need that high level type of attention and service that you're billing me out, and so
that's a values thing. So like we provide all three, and I understand that there's like, I think like there's a perception of risk, but it's because we provide such a high level of reporting to you as well, of like, here's the strategy, and like you're always welcome to a second opinion. We provide all three because we can give the best service, right? It's like, here's how you grow the business, here's the tax filings. And I'm very passionate about explaining things to people of like why. Yeah. So I think it fits. But for you, it's like, it's a value proposition. Like how, and maybe this is like, again, goes back to like, who do you hire and like what's important to them? Because for me, I'm obsessed with return on investment for our clients, because when they get a great return on what they've spent for us, they rave about us. And like that's what fills me up. So this other firm, it sounds like, it didn't matter to them. Like that wasn't a value that they looked at.
Yeah. Well, and it changed because it didn't start out that way. It was more feeling like it was like a family operation or like run business. And then there was this like corporate shift. And I was like, no, this does not work for me at all. And also too, like time and place, like this was in the beginning of my career going 16 years ago. So again, that high level attention. And back then, I didn't have multiple numbered companies, and like I was just Shae doing real estate. Precs weren't even a thing. And for those listening, like realtors weren't allowed to incorporate until 2020. And so that was like a new thing. But before, we were just sole proprietors, so like it was very simple. And so then to feel that it was very misaligned. And I think that that's also a point that you're trying to make, is that, you need to find somebody in alignment with your values, but also like what like you're needing. And that's not what I needed then, so it may take more than, one or two consultations or having meetings with either the right firm or independent to find that fit that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I like to think, if you know me, I have very high standards of myself, right? So I looked at it and I'm like, we need to do the bookkeeping because I believe you need reporting every single month. I don't want to leave it every 6 months. I don't want to leave it once a year. So we work with clients a certain way. So we do the bookkeeping, we do the taxes, we know what the taxes are going to be. So we're reporting that every month. I think we have a great service. But maybe that's not what you want. Maybe you like to do your own bookkeeping and you need an accountant. So
bookkeeping.
I don't. Some do. If you'll believe you'll never believe this. Some people do, and they like to be in control of that. And so it's about finding the right fit. Like you said, it's like, okay, well, what are the values? But asking the right questions, and I think sometimes that can be hard when you're hiring somebody, is like not knowing the right questions to ask them. But I would ask a lot about, it's like just like an interview when you're hiring team members. It's like you want to know about like where they've been in the past, like what are their favorite parts of dealing with a client, like who do they think they won't serve well, and ask those questions about like how do you stay on time. One of my biggest things right now is like, I think it tells about a firm is like, do they charge audit protection fees?
Right.
This tells a lot about a firm. So some firms, they file the taxes and then they'll sell you an audit protection fee, which basically it doesn't cover you if you actually owe more tax. So let's say CRA audits the tax return that's being filed and they find things that are not claimable and all of a sudden you owe tax. It does not cover you owing the extra tax. It just covers the time it takes for them to respond to CRA's request for information. And to me, I'm like, well, if you've done the return properly and you've documented it from the beginning, the way we're trained to, should be a pretty quick response, right? So I always love to be like, okay, these people who are selling this insurance, it's like, are they willing to just do the work like for you? Because they've already charged you, they believe in the pricing, they believe in the value that they've provided, or are they like going to nickel and dime you after the fact?
That's a really good pro tip. Like when you're looking for somebody,
Yeah. I have a client who just came to us this week. She has like 3 short-term rental properties, and this firm charged her like $3,000 to file. She put together all the spreadsheets, all the numbers, and they charged her $3,000 to file this return, which to me is like the most outrageous thing I've ever heard because she actually did all of the work. They made changes. They didn't ask her questions. They made changes to the return. And CRA's audited and made massive amounts of changes.
my goodness.
Probably about 20 to 30,000 more owing in tax. And then they sent her a $3,000 bill. So she gets all the receipts together for this response. She sends it to them because they say they're going to respond. They send her a $3,000 bill for responding to CRA. And I thought, this is the most insane thing. And when we see the response, CRA denied all the claims because of how this accountant did their work. I was like, you should not pay this. Do not pay this bill. Like, this is insane. And I think for that one, it felt like a big firm. It's just like, we do the billables. I've worked for big firms. It's like, yep, every minute's billable. It's like the lawyer, right? You're like, tick, 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 tick. Clock's ticking.
Literally.
Yeah. So
no, but it's a real, like, in real estate, we have a term like buyer beware. This is like, business owner beware, like these are, because you can look at your new client, she's so lucky to have found you, but to go through that experience, especially given how like A-type she is and how organized and like very clean, like there should have been no reason that audit even happened. And if it did, it would have been very simple. Like, here's everything handed over on a silver platter, very simple, and it would have probably gone away. And so that's a really real unfortunate example that I'm sure even a lot of people listening can relate to, truthfully, that they've been in circumstances like this.
Hey friend, if this conversation is speaking to you, please do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It's how we grow the show, reach more women, and build a future where wealthy is female. This isn't just content. This is an invitation to a new society for women. Let's rise and build it together.
I would love for you to just share real quick. I was going to leave this to the end, but I just feel like this is what we're talking about. Can you share some of your differential services that you guys provide? You're across the country from where I am right now too. Does that matter to be a client of yours? Like, walk us through just like a little bit. I want to give you like a little commercial break to be like highlight Thrive Accounting.
Yeah, thanks. No, we deal with clients across the country. We do payroll, bookkeeping, tax, and then the CFO advisory services are built into everything that we do because I already mentioned, like, I'm so obsessed with people getting a return on investment for what we do with them. So our main service really is doing monthly bookkeeping for a client. Like, our average client at the time of this recording is paying around somewhere between $200 to $300 for bookkeeping. Our corporate tax filing fees are around the $2,000 mark. Like, I'm obsessed with a return on investment, but we're reporting every single month. There's like this set of notes. We call them freedom notes because we want you to have like freedom from your business. We want you to experience the thriving, not surviving. And so we're reporting every month on like, how are you performing against your goals that you've set? And also, like, here's what's upcoming in tax. Like, this is when these filings are. Here's how much you've made in installments. Do you owe more than that or less than that? And it just comes in a written report. And we can do it so efficiently because we have a system created. We stay in our lane. There are people like, somebody who just has investments in their corporation. I'm like, yeah, that's not our best fit, right? So we stay in our lane. We work with entrepreneurs who want to know how they're doing every month. We work with a lot of realtors watching like the numbers go up and down. You never know when the deal is closing, right? Like, you're paying for costs earlier. So we tailor what we're sending to them to like really be of value. But we do, that's what we provide is the bookkeeping, tax, and advisory services.
And I think one of the biggest differences, just like right off the bat, is how accessible and available you are throughout the year. Because like you said earlier, most people, their relationship with their accountant is during tax season. It's like once a year, unless you're like a huge company, right? Like, that's very different because you have like a whole team at that point, right? But for a typical business owner, entrepreneur that's still doing well, there's not usually an ongoing dialogue happening throughout the year, which I think is really, really crucial.
Yeah, I think so. And like, I think there's just like so many layers to like what's important for us is, it's the numbers. It is seeing them because I've already given you examples on like how it changes things for business owners, right? Like, if you don't know how much you're making, you're just kind of like randomly paying yourself from the bank account. And then all of a sudden there's a tax bill. Like, I don't know about you, but like, my nervous system, like, your podcast is called the Wellthy CEO, like I don't feel well when I don't know what I owe for tax. It's always like sizzling under the surface. So we've brought a lot of those concerns for business owners back and been like, okay, how do we help people like navigate through that? And so it is about numbers, but it's also about like, okay, how do you experience, like, what kind of language do we even use when we're talking to you, right? Like, it's like helpful, like friendly. Are you scared of your numbers? Because like, I don't want to create a situation where somebody's like scared to open their email. It's like, there's so many layers, I think, to money. And then when we're having a conversation, it's like the uniqueness of every business. Like, we work with a marketing agency, and their number one way of meeting clients is going to events. They spend a lot of money on going to events, but it always has a return on investment. And they had been paying for a CFO before, and he was like, oh, this is too much money. Like, I don't know which standard or like measuring stick he was measuring this based on, but he was like, oh, no. And like, going back to the financial canvas, it was like, for that business, we're like, how do you make money? What do you do for people? And how do you make money? Is this a right fit? Looking at it as like, oh, this is a great fit for them. And somebody else, it's like looking at their business is like, it's not, right? So we're having conversations. We're like talking to people. We're not just shaming you and telling you like, oh, this is it. Like I had somebody this morning be like, how much income am I supposed to spend on marketing? And I'm like, well, first of all, like the only people who tell you how much are like, Fortune 500s. They've done a lot of things. They're talking about massive budgets. They've been around the block. They've got data to know the number of marketing spend that they're doing. If you're talking about a small business, we have small business owners who clear $500,000 without investing dollars into marketing. They invest their time into it, but not dollars. And then on the flip side, it's like we have business owners who are struggling to make six figures that are investing a lot in marketing and not getting a return. So we're having those conversations with them of like, hey, this is not getting you the results you want. So it's like so individual. Like that's what you really want to find is somebody who really works with you and can like also approach a conversation in a way that it's like a question, right? It's not a judgment. It's a question. It's like, hey, why did you choose to spend this? Did it get you the result? Like, maybe we just need to stick it out one more month for it to kind of come through. Like, YouTube, for example, is like a long game, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of layers to money conversations. And if you're working with somebody who like makes everything black and white, I don't think you will get the results you want. Like we all want to run businesses, or the people that I know, we want to run businesses that like support our life. They really, it adds value. It's like, that's where we get to put our energy, our work. We get a return for that. It, sustains us. It's not adding a ton of stress. Like we want to create businesses that feel good and we have a good life because of it.
I love that. And it is true. Like everything you just said, it's like, so this is going to be like your life's work. It's like what you're dedicating your time, like you're investing all of it in, and to not feel good or excited or thriving, no pun intended, but literally to not feel that, or to feel really stagnant and trapped, is the opposite of what you should be going through, so.
Yeah. But so like to bring it back around, you mentioned like women were scared of looking at our numbers. And I think it's because we don't know. And I think it was in the 80s when women could finally apply for a mortgage themselves, like, or a credit card or something like that. It's insane, right? So we don't live that and we forget that happened. But there's a lot of information not passed down. And so we look at it and we don't know. We were not bred with like, okay, we need to, know these numbers and like, how are we making this money? And so we don't know it. And then we're like, okay, well, then what do we do? Well, our default is to go into things with heart. Like we're so emotional beings, like that we're like, okay, if I just show up well and I show up with heart and I deliver that, like I'll be compensated for it. And there's a lot of like messaging online about that being true. And I think it is. Like we show up with generosity and we are definitely rewarded for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it can go too far, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't know and we're just like I think as women, we don't know our boundaries. Like we're often overgivers. So
Right.
we will kill ourselves and potentially doing the wrong things because we're not looking at the feedback of like, hey, I wanted this result. Here are the actions I took. Did I get the result I wanted? And so just like bringing it back is like, it's not really about the numbers. It's about, did I get the result I wanted from the actions that I took? Because my questions to myself and my business that lead to my financial decisions every month is like, does business feel easy? And so if business doesn't feel easy, I'm looking at like, okay, so maybe I need to hire more team members in order to do that. What's the financial equation have to look like, right? So it does tie in the numbers, but it's like, it's actually about how I feel. So I think there's like women, if we look at it and tell ourselves, oh, it's not actually about a 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God, I said 6, 7. Your kids aren't old enough for that yet, but that's terrifying. It's not about the actual number or the dollars and cents in our bank account. It's about the actions and the results. Are we on the right path, right? What changes do we need to make? If we can make it about that, I think it takes all of the like fear away and just says, oh, like it's just feedback.
Yeah. I love that. So in like, as you're saying that, I'm like, I agree wholeheartedly with with what you've said. And I think we even talked a little bit about that on your podcast. And, for me, I am constantly, this is why this podcast exists. It's part of the core mission behind it, really to empower women and give them permission to be having these conversations, to discover, to know what questions to start to ask for. Because if you don't even know the question, you can't seek out the answer. You don't even know that there's an answer you should be looking for. And so kind of in closing, I would love to ask you, if I was a new client or you had a new client coming to you that was maybe feeling stuck and they really want to strengthen their business financially, is there kind of a 90-day plan? Or if you were to take 90 days, because we live in the instant now, right? Everyone wants get rich quick. We want insta changes. And that's not realistic, especially when we're talking about business and growth and scaling and needing to restructure. So if you were to look at 90 days and take 3 months, is there 3 things maybe that you could implement now to start to create more profit, stability, freedom, which is one of your core pillars in your business as well, that you would advise? You can call it the 90-day wealth plan.
Yeah. Well, we actually have a process for this in our business, and we measure this for clients. So the very first step is about stability. And so number 1 is getting the bookkeeping up to date and correct. It's got to provide us the information about the business, right? So we need to have the bookkeeping up to date. It not to get into too much details, but the chart of accounts, is it tracking the right thing? If you have different service items, we might want to look at, how much are you making from this one and versus this one? So we get it tracking the right things. And then we look at where are the money leaks? So right away we're looking at where are we leaking? And within our overhead costs, this is something that people instantly are like, oh, I'm overpaying for my cell phone bill. And you're like, yeah, but the $12 a month you're going to save isn't going to get you financial freedom. So we close up the leaks. We get that list in place of okay, where are the leaks? But then we started looking at the efficiency of what you're providing. And so that is where now you have all the knowledge, and then it's taking the action steps. So for service providers, this often looks like getting it much clearer on what you're delivering to your customers and how long that takes you to deliver. Because without that clarity, we had a client who literally was paying to do one of their clients' marketing because they had no idea that they quoted based on a legacy pricing. There was scope creep involved. So we start gaining that clarity, and it just makes different decisions. But it ends up in a lot of systemic changes in the business, right? Of okay, well, from now on, here's how we're going to quote. Here's some quote out our service. But it starts with the clarity. We have to get the numbers in place, so we're tracking the progress, and then we start taking those steps. Tied into that is well, what is your goal, right? Where are you feeling the pain in your business right now? Are you overworking? Are you not taking enough pay? So we need to understand a little bit about those pain points as well to start clawing our way out of it, right? Taking the steps up the ladder to get yourself out of the hole.
I love it. I feel like we could have a whole episode on just that, just that process. Because it's so important. And that's, I think sometimes people just they don't realize that there is a roadmap and that they need one.
Can I tell you my favorite hack right now though?
Yes.
So I think it's something, okay. Whenever we try to learn a new skill set. So when I listen to a podcast, often I'm oh, I want to learn something new, right? Yeah. You have to build the reps. So I went to business school. I became an accountant, but I would say I wasn't great at business. I had to build the reps. So you hire people to get you further faster. So you can hire someone like our team to really uniquely look at your business and be okay, we're going to do this. But if you can't afford that yet, or you're in a very tight position and you're I don't know what to do, AI is the biggest hack right now for anybody. You could ask it to take a look at your finances. If you just got your numbers together, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. Okay. So like I've chat GPT things a lot of times and been like, no, you're wrong. And then 5 minutes later, ask the same question. It still gives me the same wrong answer. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you could ask it. Like if you knew of somebody who gave great advice financially, you could say like, what does so-and-so think of this? Like, what does Shae think of this investing? Because you've put out enough content that ChatGPT can pull from your like podcast transcripts and like give people some advice, right? Of like, this is what, the advice that came from Wellthy CEO was. And so I think that at a minimum, if you're not going to invest in a service, which I do think is affordable, but if you're not going to invest in that, like, ChatGPT, like, where's the biggest leak right now? What's one step forward that I can take in my business? And it is about building the muscle and getting yourself in the rooms, listening to the podcast, listening, like taking a course maybe. If you're going to do it yourself, then like you have to learn to ask the right questions, and you'll ask one and then you'll realize you should ask another and another, and it becomes unique to your business. But like just take the steps forward and like use AI if it like there's no excuses.
Well, to add to that hack, because as you're saying that, I'm like, if you don't know the questions you should be asking, ask ChatGPT. What are the top 10 questions I should be asking in my business in order to, like, you talk about the leaks, to stop having these leaks in my business or whatever it is. You want to scale, you want to grow, like ask ChatGPT, what are the top 10 questions that I'm not thinking to ask? It'll give you a whole list. And then from there, you can even branch off more and do it again. There's many times I've even been like, more please, more please, more please, more please. Like sometimes it's like for podcast titles, sometimes it's for a mastermind, like whatever it is that I'm like creating, where I'm like, I give it the prompts, but then I'm like, what else can it come up with? So I just keep hitting more please. So you could ask for what are the top 10 questions I should be asking, and then just hit more please, more please. Like, so I love that you brought up that hack because it's highly valuable. And I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast the other day, and she had on, I can't remember her name, but she's arguably like the most authoritative voice amongst females in AI. And she was on Mel Robbins' podcast. And she said, most of us women are using AI 25% less than men, which sucks to hear that, because again, it's like, the man's arena, building our own table, all of these things, like move over. It's our turn. So already hearing that like men are ahead in that, and this isn't about shitting on men. Like I have zero, tolerance for that. We all play our own role, but for women, I have this passion to see women rise. So when I hear that, I get disheartened, because I'm like, we have this incredible tool and it's being underutilized by women. And one of the things that she had said is that the main way people are using it is to improve productivity, and you're missing the golden opportunity. And your example is exactly that. Like, yes, you could say, scan all of my receipts here, take a photo of all of your receipts on the floor, and you literally could be like, organize it, itemize it, all of the things, and it'll do that. From a productivity standpoint, you just got so many hours back. It's amazing. But the real golden opportunity is the hack that you just said. It's like, what am I not seeing in my business? Where are the leaks? How could I increase profit? How could I, if I wanted to scale, are the things that I need to redirect funds, or, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say like rejig, but it's not like, but restructure like your budget for where you're allocating funds, so that you could be like, okay, we need to take from here and put it here in order to grow, in order to scale, whatever your goal is, right? And that is the hack, and that is the tool within AI that is being very underutilized at this moment.
Yeah, and I think too, like you have to be clear of like what you're looking for. So for example, if I was not an accountant, I would be saying to it like who I am, how I want to perceive things, like what's important to me, what are my non-negotiables, like, so because AI just pulls what's from the internet. So it's like, if you're just telling it, like, create me a budget, it doesn't understand that you're a heart-led, female entrepreneur who wants to continue to overpay based on market price, like market wages. Like, you want to overpay. Like, that's a non-negotiable for me. So help me build a budget around that, right? Like, you have to give it some great prompts, but like, for me, I don't understand marketing. And I told it like 4 names that I think are marketing geniuses. And I'm like, what am I missing in my business? And the things that it spit out, I was
Yeah.
like, genius. And it's things like, you still have to apply your knowledge to it, right? But it's like, you didn't know the questions to ask. And now you get to use your own lens and be like, yes, no, like, decide what's right for you, what's not. I agree with you. I think, like, okay, productivity, but it's like, it's actually, to me, it's like, it increases our speed of learning and our decision making. And like, now every single response it gives me is like what the top 1% would do, or like the top 0.1%, because I was like, I'm not average and I don't want to be average. So you better not give me an average answer.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And that goes in training your GPT, right? Like, you've got to go in and train your companion so it knows what you want.
Now
Which
it really knows, like, every single answer. I'm like, my dog's not sleeping at night, and it's like, here's what the top 1% would do. But yeah.
which is one of the other things that I think even maybe some people listening don't even realize you can actually go in to train your chat GPT, and you should be I put it in my calendar, like, twice a year, you go in and you look at that again. Are you speaking to the audience that you're wanting to capture? Because if you're growing, that's going to change your avatar of who you're speaking to or who you're serving. It could emerge. You still might have a tier, like, in your business, to still serve those initial people. But if you're growing, your audience, your clientele is also going to change. So you have to be adapting that. And so that was another really good insight and reminder to be like, yeah, I need to put that in my calendar, that, like, you could even do it every quarter, like every quarter or twice a year, just go in and be like, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to update based on my needs and wants and my desires, my goals, all of that.
Well, and I think that's, like, also no different than, like, we update our budget, or we update, like, you take a look at your mission and vision, right? It's like, you need to update the plan, or like the map, as you take steps forward, like, you have new perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and this would just be like including this in your marketing strategy, right? Like, that's, to me, what it's a part of is, like, you obviously don't run the same campaign all year long. I mean, some people do for certain businesses, but, like, as an entrepreneur or like a medium-sized business owner, you're not going to necessarily do that. You're going to change after a quarter or whatever it is, so, like, you need to refresh and just have eyes on that. So, like, putting that into your marketing plan,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I love this conversation, Staci. I feel like you have given, like, a breath of fresh air to what is often very stale, and not as exciting. And I really believe that many people listening are going to feel very empowered that they actually have tangible steps that they can start taking, which brings freedom, right? Like, when you actually are listening to something, and that was my intent for today, was like, I didn't just want, like, oh, that's very inspirational, like, cool, but I'm still in the same spot, and so share with us, for anyone who wants to go deeper, they want to connect with you, with Thrive Accounting, where is the best place that they can connect?
Yeah, I'm Staci.Millard on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and we have all the links to everything else on that platform. So I'd say that's probably the easiest. But also, like, if you want more advice, I love oversharing. So I've got 300 and some episodes of podcasts that you can dive into, whether it's like guests or my episodes of, like, here's what I think you should be doing in business and paying attention to. So you can also go to small business school.
I love that. I love it. Well, Staci, thank you so much for your time today and being here.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you.
If something in today's episode resonated with you or sparked a shift, tag me on IG or send me a DM. I genuinely love hearing what lands for you. And if it spoke to you, share it or leave a quick review. It helps more women find this show and step into their own wealthy era. Until next time, lead with purpose, live with intention, and stay wealthy.